It is the most advanced aircraft carrier ever built. It is also the largest aircraft carrier in the world. The U.S. Navy, the most expensive aircraft carrier ever built. Whether it is military equipment, in terms of scale, he is an amazing work of art. The construction period lasted 13 years. This is the ultimate evolution of naval technology. We'll deploy as a monstrously capable ship. The construction cost of the entire aircraft carrier is as high as $14 billion US. It is the first American, equipped with 5th generation stealth fighter aircraft carrier USS Ford. It is also the first ship of the US Ford class aircraft carrier. At the same time, as the 11th aircraft carrier of the US Navy, undoubtedly the US military, the core of the latest naval combat force. The ship uses many high-tech, mainly includes integrated electric propulsion, electromagnetic catapult technology, becoming the representative of maritime power in the 21st century. It's possible that the new technology might not work. We knew going into this it was going to be a difficult ship. Today we'll go inside the Ford. Let's see where the Ford aircraft carrier is advanced. What is life like on an aircraft carrier? How big is the project of building an aircraft carrier? July 2017. At Naval Station Norfolk, Virginia. Still gathering on this $14 billion supercarrier. Finally saw it around. The full lineup of the Gerald Delft. Its length reaches 333 meters. Width 40.8 meters. Height 83 meters. Standard displacement is 100,160 tons. Full load displacement is 112,000 tons. The weight of 400 Statues of Liberty. 1,000 gray paint used to spray the entire hull. As high as 760,000 liters. Enough to repaint the entire White House 350 times. He will officially enter the Navy today. This is more than 40 years, the US military's first completely new aircraft carrier design. This most advanced military ship design meets the needs of the 21st century Navy. Aircraft and weapons carried. The weapon will be more powerful than any warship on Earth. More flight equipment on board aircraft carriers. There are 4 electronic catapults, advanced landing arrest system. Defensive weapons mainly include 2 improved Sea Sparrow missiles, 8-pile launching device, 2 Gongyang air defense missile launchers, and 3 Mk-15 20mm 6-barreled intensive shockwave guns. They are installed onto strings and on the platform outside the stern. Also equipped with a 12.7mm heavy machine gun. Besides, there is also a right ear bullet launcher and torpedo right ear system. Ford's ammunition. The transportation system also uses new technology, omnidirectional automatic transport vehicle, automatic bomb loading robot, and automated ammunition depot. Technology. The USS Ford also plans new concept weapons. This includes electromagnetic railguns, high-energy laser, high-energy rays, etc. Ford also on the flight deck. It has been further optimized. Provide new operating systems for subsequent equipment. Strong protection. Also, Ford is also equipped with 2 new pressurized water nuclear. The reactor is expected to operate for 50 years. This is also at the same level as the fleet. This is for aircraft carriers that need to travel long distances. A huge good thing indeed. This avoids the need to change materials back and forth. Overhaul! It can also make the Ford aircraft carrier's service week completely changed. Attendance rate will be significantly improved. Higher energy density. Lower cycle power. Simplified structure. Electronic monitoring system. Ford generates electricity for Nimitz. 3 times of mother. This has brought about a huge change in the supply of electricity. This also led to a significant reduction in the number of weaving personnel. The supercarrier is the ultimate symbol of military power. He is the Mobile Sea Airport. Provides convenience for door-to-door operations and through land and sea. For example, the great victory in the Battle of Midway. With the development of post-war technology, missions from the sea are still fraught with danger during high-speed landing. Any small mistake could lead to fatal disasters. Naval aviation today still can eliminate the danger. U.S. aircraft carrier. Each strategic deployment lasts about 6 months, reaching almost all of the world. During this period, they will complete approximately 9,000 catapult launches. 99% of them went smoothly. The navigation cabin on the upper deck. It's the captain's. The command headquarters is also the navigator's workplace. Here, a young shopkeeper maneuvers the wooden steering wheel. But this steering wheel, it's the only link between the Reagan and the past. Strategic location. Elsewhere. The beacon has already been fully integrated with future technology with the help of the navigation management system. Navigators can clearly see the location of the aircraft carrier and use autonomous driving to reach the destination. Speaking of the power system of this super aircraft, the military can be said to it uses a powerful and efficient energy source like all Nimitz own aircraft carrier in the vast ocean. After the foundation, relying onto nuclear reactors deep inside the powered by. The 2 nuclear reactors are classified as highly confidential, strictly protected. Inside the reactor, the nuclear fission reaction of the fuel is controlled. Release energy to heat heavy water. Hot liquid passes through a heat exchanger to produce steam. Drive turbine. The combat power of the aircraft carrier battle group is unmatched. The generator has been driven to generate the energy required by the high-pressure steam also operates the aircraft catapult. He drives a huge turbine deep inside the ship. Large bearings. For giant copper propellers spin rapidly. At the stern, there are 2 sets of giant directional, responsible for controlling the direction of travel. The USS Beagle has to combine reactors. One can basically meet all the needs of the ship. The carrier battle group strike group consists of aircraft carriers. You need to set to just in case. The nuclear reactor and turbines of the USS Beagle. It also provides power for aircraft carriers. From the radar screen, hangar door to aircraft elevator. All of this adds up. Approximately 64 million amount of electricity is required, sufficient to satisfy a Electricity demand in a city with a population of 100,000. Nuclear reactors are designed to operate for more than 20 years. Cruisers, destroyers, and submarines. All fuel needs to be replaced. Speaking of giant metal parts, these 30-ton ships must not be ignored. They are connected with a giant chain more than 300. Each link weighs 165 kilograms. These heavy chains are usually placed on the bow, in deck storage or chain locker. The chain locker is located below deck 3. Funnage. They are all supplied by supply. The wool chains and the machines that move them are huge. This is also the Reagan aircraft carrier. Features of all devices. The USS Deng is a typical engineering mass. It took 5 years to build. The cost is as high as $4.5 billion. Then this steel behemoth. How was it built? The answer lies in Newport, Virginia. News Shipyard. Fuel support. The only one in the US. A shipyard capable of building a nuclear-powered aircraft. Lee Kuan-ho aircraft carrier construction began in the workers' first cut. Welding of huge foundation components. These parts are then welded together. More than 160 giant assembly parts were manufactured. Each component weighs more than 900 tons. Then the workers have to assemble these parts. Assemble pipes and lines one by one. Then we use the 23 put these parts in place. The final touch is the 650-ton Cambridge Reagan aircraft carrier. 47,000 tons of structural steel used. 450,000 30,000 light fixtures. There are more than 2,000 kilometers of cables. That's the equivalent of the entire state of California. Length of coastline. Cruisers are one of the largest combat ships in the Navy. Engineers. A major innovation has also been added. 722-ton spherical archer. This unusual addition helps stabilize the boat. Reduce the huge resistance caused. Former First Lady Nancy Reagan. 2 years later, he completed his maiden voyage. Afterwards, the Legion became the flagship of the expected to serve in the U.S. Navy. Each ship weighs 10,000 tons. This is Lee Kuan-ho, the lower deck of a supercarrier. In this huge underground maze, how did the 5,000 or 6,000 crew members live? This is a very different flight deck. And the little-known world. There is a lot of fun here. The only thing missing is privacy promotion. There are more than 50 cabins. The crew lived in the cabin. Equipped with a range of weapons and equipment. The crew's bunks are divided into the length is only 1.98 meters. The sleeping space is very narrow. But in comparison, personal storage rooms are more cramped. Only 0.1 for cubic meters, or under the bed, or a locker. The beds are divided into male and female areas. In fact, female members. The destroyers of the battle group are fast. It has also been integrated into all areas of the aircraft carrier. Women make up 20% of the. They fought alongside the male crew members. No less. Compared with the crew in the small cabin, the captain is living a heavenly. As a naval commander with 20 years of experience, Graf's rank. Enough to give him some privilege. This is the captain's office. flexible and efficient. This place is called the Aircraft Carrier Sanctuary. It can be said that it is inward, a place to pay tribute to President Root when they designed the room. Drawing on the style of the White House Red House, it is said that the Red House, it was a favorite place of First Lady Nancy Reagan. This table is the one that President Reagan held, used when he was governor of California. Li Denghao's deputy commander is Kevin Kuki, and equipped with powerful Tomahawk land cruise missiles. He is in charge of all operations of the aircraft carrier. One of the jobs: regular inspections from top to bottom. To inspect every corner of the aircraft carrier. It takes about a week. Every morning from 7:30 to 8, they're going to do a full cleanup. Charles Matt Grillon will be the commander of the aircraft carrier. Lee Kyun-ho, a Battle X. The aircraft carrier consists of 7 or 8 Suai-style Suham warships, include several destroyers, a cruiser, an attack ship ender. Duties of a submarine battle group commander is to ensure that the entire battle group can complete the task safely and fully. Solve the crew's food problem. But it is Monica Orias's responsibility. It is very important to ensure that the missiles alone are worth $500,000. They have to work on the deck for 16 hours a day, up to 20 hours. When you come down, naturally, we all want to eat delicious food. 5 restaurants on the USS Beagle. 23 hours work per day. 18,000 meals served. From 11 dry goods warehouses to chefs create amazing food every day. Lee Kyun-ho bakes 300 loaves of bread, can carry a 450 kilograms worth, cooking nearly 2,500 fresh eggs, and more than 7,000 pounds of meat. Chefs preparing food. There is only one word to describe. From hot dogs to fried shrimp to steak. Quite a large number. Steak is usually everyone's favorite food. Preparing food also creates a lot of waste. There simply isn't enough storage. This time, technology can pay attention to the power of a 2,800 kilometers cruising range. In this machine, plastic is cut and melted, finally compressed into a huge disc. Hockey stadium. They are stored in the hangar. Recover when ready to return to land. About 100 of these discs are made here every day. It is said that people drink 600,000 cans. These cans are cut into small pieces, then throw it on the periphery of the attacking battle group. All the things thrown out, all of them are substances that can be decomposed by seawater. Life on the USS Ronald Reagan. The most annoying thing is only one thing. That's the whole layout. It's like an intricate, multi-layered inside is not only easy to get lost, and it's very tiring. To help the crew identify the direction, they posted the ship's floor plan in a nuclear submarine is responsible for watertight doors and solid door frames throughout the quarters. I came across this one, which is slightly narrower than the aisle. Ground opening. You have to bend down. Otherwise, you'll hit your head. Keep your knees elevated. Otherwise, the lower edge of the or parts that are easy to hit the knees. It will break your bones. This is real life on an aircraft carrier. His main role is to hunt enemy ships. In the vast ocean. Crew. Maybe it's easy to get used to it. In this moving castle, eat, sleep, and move around. But the food on the aircraft carrier, fuel and other important supplies. But it is not in it, so the burden of continuing to provide supplies. It falls on the shoulders of the supply department and enemy submarines. Logistics. Supply is a very important issue for the Navy. It is a completed aircraft carrier. Important material guarantee for strategic deployment. There is value here. US $475 million. These are not just ships, including airplanes. Supply personnel. Connection maintenance should be performed at the Mark 48 heavy torpedo it carries. Get new supplies from the naval supply ship. Fuel and fresh food. To ensure the smooth transfer of supplies. Aircraft carriers and supply ships must be within the next 3 to 6 hours. Keep up the pace. The heading and mutual distance remain constant. Call Eric Patton. It's the customs of the USS Ronald Reagan. He is responsible for driving this offshore airport, carrying a 300 kilograms warhead before starting to transfer supplies. They must first. The supply ship at a distance of 48.7 meters fired. These shooting locks are actually very thin nylon ropes. They then tighten the nylon rope with a thicker rope. The last one. The procedure is to use a thick. 2 connecting stations are dedicated to the management of 3.5 million gallons. Can split an enemy ship in 2. Jet fuel is pumped into the carrier's fuel tank. 2 other connected replenishment stations are responsible for food, and shelf replenishment requires the use of a pulley hanger. Transport all supplies to the hangar bay of the Reagan. The process of connection and repair. There are many dangers hidden in the body. If the 2 ships' headings deviate, the shooting line will stretch or even break. The rebounded steel cable becomes the life to carrier battle. Any uncontrolled approach will cause the cables to pull the crew overboard. Deck department leader, Klett Strasberg. The major and the security personnel are close, watching the whole process. All white hats are security guards. Their main job is to clear all risk factors. No one is allowed near the edge of the deck. All the supply tasks of the group are assigned to a ship or wear a watch. Rings and other gestures. Finally, all the supplies have been transported. Aircraft carrier mission declared over. It is very difficult to get supplies. Managing sailors is even more difficult. To ensure the smooth operation of the aircraft carrier, managers must plan carefully. Keep working hard. An aircraft carrier is specialized in delivering food. Small but complete. They have their own fire department, has its own hospital security and police department. All the urban facilities you can think of. You can also find it here. There are 5 medical officers in the hospital on the aircraft carrier, 63 beds. They receive a variety of patients every day. From the common cold, leg injury caused by fuel and ammunition. Doctors perform more than 2 operations every day. The most common treatment is hand wounds. For the crew, the most difficult thing is to be with my family. Separation time 3 to 6 months. Every time on the ship at sea. Execute a 6-month strategic deployment. It's a painful thing. Crew. The only way to stay connected with my family is through books. In the center of the carrier battle group, letter. The USS Beagle has its own and postal system. Waiting staff. Over 1,800 kilograms of mail is when I am not at work or I miss home. Team members. You can also choose a leisure method that suits you, or work out at any of the 5 gyms. Aircraft carrier, or watch TV. Send and receive emails. Read the magazine. Or to the ship. Buying American products from my hometown at a convenience store in addition to food. They also know how to relieve stress and have fun. Aircraft carrier military morale, often in the hangar below deck. Hold karaoke. It carries value. Concert. The crew members value each other's singing. Competition is also for these hard-working crew members. The highlight of nostalgic activities, the pen. It is a special celebration, this unique steel plate picnic. Able to transfer crew from. Temporarily relieve yourself from the stressful work. $3.5 billion in high-tech carrier-based aircraft. Let them enjoy the delicious. Enjoy unique time at sea. For the crew who are busy all day long, Lee Kyun-ho will always be their pride. Well, this is Lee Jin-ho's life on. This is the U.S. Navy. The world's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. From its official commissioning in 1961, a 5 billion-year war. Let him, especially the ships on board the USS Ford, becoming the longest-lasting aircraft carrier. This is the USS Enterprise. It is also the only one built. Enterprise-class aircraft carrier. Length 340, it's about the size of 4 football fields. The crew consists of 3,215 people. Powered by a LW pressurized water reactor, turbine electric propulsion. The most advanced aircraft. 4-axle 4-armor. Maximum speed 35 knots. The maximum number of aircraft on the flight deck is 84. There are for takeoff catapults, can launch fighter jets. 2 of them are at the front, 2 in the middle. In addition, there are for arresting cables on the ship, can intercept small aircraft across a deck that is only 76 meters wide. Overall performance of the F-35C stealth fighter. The USS Enterprise has witnessed countless historical participated in the Vietnam War, Iraq War, Afghanistan War and the many wars in the Gulf, and for the U.S. Navy. Accumulated rich practical experience. This American fleet sailed through they all gathered around the USS. We only have the Bell. World class. Wants to Bell forever. His mission is to support the ground. The Army is fighting with 2 hands. This battleship. The most advanced warfare. Machines and weapons. If your heart gets pumping and you know that what you're doing is really important. It's the most thrilling and the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. Today, its combat radius exceeds 1,000 kilometers. Through the early experience the real life of aircraft carrier combat. They have been carefully deployed for months. Day after day being working non-stop in controlled chaos. Everyone wants to know, when can I return to my home? The Enterprise is a floating city. In nearly 7 months, during the 59,000-mile voyage, plus the support of the Ford aircraft carrier, here are more than 5,500 men. Temporary housing for female crew members, Navy pilots in the Air Squadron, gathered in their waiting room. The last inspection before this deployment. Megan Angerman. He is one of the pilots in the Air Force Squad. I grew up flying with my dad when I was little. And then I went through ROC. And when it came, this made the U.S. time to choose what I wanted to do in the Navy. I decided that naval aviation would be the best and most exciting job, so here I am. This is Angman's first combat mission. Usually after the inspection meeting is completed, it will give the pilot some time. Let them calm down. Focus. Prepare for the next flight mission. Engelman is a 29-year-old female pilot. Regained the long-lost deep assault capability. The FS-8 he drove. The B is also one of the most advanced fighter jets in the world. Total value exceeds 95 million United States dollars. This aircraft destroyed several blocks. Angerman, one of 230 pilots aboard the USS Enterprise. When they fly, flight managers will monitor their safety. Layman. The United States built a total of 155. Ziwuvu has absolute control over I'm the manager of the airport. But all my aircraft carry weapons. Same as Angerman. Bye. NC is also a novice pilot. Today is also the first time to participate in a He is a descendant of military pilots. His father served in the I've always loved blind. But all the aircraft carriers added together. When I was growing up, my dad had a bunch of pictures of his F for days he was a. weapons officer backseat F4s for the Jolly Rogers, and he told me about it a little bit. Baines has been training for nearly 3 years. In this deployment, only then did I get the opportunity. They will perform dozens of tasks. None of them has a formula that works. None of them are as powerful as an aircraft carrier today. People. The well-known Dai aircraft carrier began construction in 1958. It was the first ship built for the U.S. Navy. Nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. 8 reactors can generate a lot of energy. The average horsepower of a normal racing Enterprise has 280 it has for propellers. Each weighs 32 tons. Officially named in September 1955 after World War. From then on, the Enterprise began to carry jet and naval pilots participate in various armed conflicts around the world. In the blockade of the Cuban Missile Crisis, his crew is sailing. During the U.S.-Vietnam War, his sailors were fully involved in a mighty aircraft carrier. Enterprise becomes the first nuclear-powered ship ever to enter a newly designed Forest-class aircraft combat off the coast of Vietnam. The Biggie launches her Phantom jets against Viet Cong hideouts. For planes can be time. Enterprise does not need to build an air base. This gave the ground commander huge power. The aircraft can carry a large amount of weapons launched from the Arabian Sea and hit targets within about 1,000 miles. Became the first super aircraft carrier of the U.S. Navy. Provide power projection ashore anywhere in the world. Don't require, even if the pilot is around the aircraft carrier. Finding your direction is a challenge. Perfecting the launch and landing technology of fighter jets on aircraft. It took engineers nearly a century to develop. The first time a plane took off from a ship, dating back to 1910. Just 10 years later, Jupiter carrying coal and set the standard for subsequent. It was converted into the first aircraft carrier. By 1936, the first USS, his reconnaissance plane. First encounter with Japanese bomb meeting on a narrow road. Because the Pacific Fleet destroyer. The Japanese Navy was entangled for 3.5 forestall. Enterprise not only participated in the battle, it also undertook to maintain. Dawn of May 15, 1945. Monitors on the deck captured the disaster. A Japanese kamikaze fighter plane smashed. 12 people died and 72 were injured. The people on board successfully controlled the fire that occurred. But the Enterprise are our first aircraft carriers that are in excess of 75, forced to withdraw from the battle. The next few months, the Enterprise carried wounded servicemen returned to the U.S. As the Enterprise entered New York Harbor, everyone stood on the deck and stared. This means that 20 years after he entered the water, this USS Enterprise, a vital American one, was given to the Japanese. 0 gross tons. Heavily damaged warship. It was gradually abandoned in the late 1950s. A new, even advanced Enterprise is also planned. Now the Enterprise, Port Norfolk, Virginia, sailing to the Arabian Sea. His crew received orders. soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan, which is sort of the Megan Angerman already has. I haven't seen my husband for 7 months. I think the hardest part about being out here for just being away from family and friends. You know, missing the little things about home. He is his squadron, the only female fighter pilot on the former U.S. aircraft carrier. No female pilots allowed. Later, this rule changed. He is also the first ship designed to carry. From the beginning, women enter cockpit of Navy fighter jet. It's a controversial thing. The U.S. Navy's first female fighter pilot, Karahu Green, died in an accident in 1994. The accident report shows it was due to engine failure and the pilot. Collision caused by so many people questioned whether it was related to aircraft carriers carrying nuclear. After more than 10 years of running in, female pilots are already She actually was. On I Want an Embarrasser, she was the top 5 nugget in the airway. For the entire cruise, in other words, she was the 5th best in laney performance on the aircraft carrier for the whole crew. So yeah, that hits say she's pretty good nugget. The next for Kitty Hawk class aircraft. During the Iraq, 6,500 aircraft depart from the USS in the Persian Gulf, performing missions in the sky. As Army troops march toward close air support missions are increasing. Naval Aviator. There are nearly 1,000 flight missions every day. Every time I receive a mission deployment. Following the design of the Forest class, the USS Enterprise will carry one to see Hawkeye perform aircraft conducting surveys. The Scarf is designed to attack and destroy, and it served as an aerial refueling tanker. The Ranger is a radar kill. They are responsible for destroying the enemy's eyes in battle. There are 4 combat squadrons on the 3 of the squadrons, Wasp fighter. Then came the Enterprise nuclear-powered, responsible for conducting rigorous close combat coordination. The 4th squadron is the Fighter Attack Squadron. They're flying this, although the Super Hornet is similar to the Wasp fighter, but it is actually can defend against a wider range and multifunction. New fighter jets for the pilot and others on deck. For the crew, and 10 Nemes and aircraft carriers. The last squadron may be the most important. Dragon Slayer pilots the Seahawk helicopter. They have 2 tasks. The first is to hunt down enemy submarines. The second is the search and rescue mission. Any member of the Enterprise crew, these people have a responsibility to save their lives. Being able to fly and swim at the same time is really you really don't get to many jobs I can do that. The flight deck is bringing US on this more than 300 to accommodate up to 43 fighter jets, 1 plane and another. The plane was only inches away. Each plane has 20,000 pounds and equipped with thousands of pounds of bombs. So it is a lot of material in a very, very small area. And we don't, in this environment, well known. Catastrophic accidents can happen at any time. A small mistake can have fatal consequences. In the history of Enterprise, he faced many surprises. But one day, he was almost devastated. January 14th, 1969. Enterprise is 75 nautical miles from Hawaii. At this time, he was heading. A rocket exploded on the flight deck. The United States has the cause of fire. installed in multiple cameras in the tower and on the deck. This horrific scene was captured. The fuel tank was ignited, causing other warheads to explode one after another. Fire and smoke surrounded the entire aircraft carrier. 500-pound bomb exploded on the flight deck. The explosive force of the bomb tear a hole in the boat. It is also the country with the highest expenditure on aircraft. The ship once dropped below the Chishui line. Burning jet fuel spilled. It was a suffocating hell both on and off the deck. In just 20 minutes, more than 340 crew members were injured. Most of them are the Flight Deck Fire Brigade. Later, the Enterprise was rebuilt. Returned to work after 51 days. Decades later, he once again stood on the battlefield. Every morning, aircraft carriers are expensive to maintain. In each, the team began to prepare for this job requires hundreds of people working day and night. Staff wearing work. The color of the shirt represents their mission. Red working hills indicate firefighters and bomb loaders. Blue work hills indicate confined spaces, not only in terms of its own machinery and equipment, operating an aircraft. Brown works at the mountain and is the captain, responsible for ensuring the aircraft deliberate takeoff. This purple or dark purple job mountain employees only one task, responsible for fuel filling. Green jobs hill. In addition to the endless maintenance, we also need to cooperate with the staff. There is also a large number of overhead personnel. Aircraft takeoff and resupply. Identify. The most recognizable yellow work mountain launcher, responsible for the safe takeoff of the aircraft before the aircraft is launched from the deck. The last person the pilot saw. The person in charge of launching. They usually lean over the deck. Avoid being hit by munitions hanging from the wings during the war. Cost of living. America's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. The 4 catapults on the Enterprise. Another plane ejects every 28 seconds. Takeoff efficiency. For troops on distant battlefields. Crucial. The pilots are under the greatest pressure. They follow the routine. Make sure you are ready. But the pilot, can you believe it? You're not the only one who needs to prepare to deal with the threat. The Enterprise was also equipped with a small fleet of heavily armed, cruising around him day and night. A billion-dollar cruise ship, equipped with the Aegis combat system, can destroy aircraft carriers. Any air threat. A frigate equipped with small guns and torpedoes. Can you spend 100 mil able to protect aircraft carriers from missile attacks? Missile zones are increasingly becoming a powerful obstacle to air threat. It's also the enemy's submarine supply ship. Provide supplies and ammunition for the surface. The last member of the carrier battle group you rarely see. He is the deadliest submarine. A total of dozens of can also launch cruise missiles. Let me show you today. Enterprise Carrier Strike Group. Equipped with the most advanced weapons in the world at that time. However, daily flight operation control. Like a board game. Everything on the flight deck. All copied to this zero hard disk. Once the fighter is in position, training gives way to combat sorties. Coalition forces set. Customize your flight plan based on these. What is life like on an aircraft carrier? Pilots are basically flying 7 days a week. 5 days of which are for training missions. 2 days of combat flight. They were from a secret location in the Arabian Sea. Set off. Start heading to the designated ground controller. Will instruct pilots to attack specific targets. During the flight, the planes are constantly moving on the deck. The Army moves before the food and fodder. The catapult is the most important component at this time. Above the deck, there is a shuttle connected to the steam-driven piston below. When the plane is locked on the shuttle, pilots achieve full power operation. Below deck, steam reaches maximum pressure. Shooter signals. Piston thrust forward. Rich dishes. Throw the plane high. The catapult can be launched at a speed of a 33-ton Super Hornet. In 2 seconds, launches from a standstill to 165 miles per hour, putting pilots under for huge pressures. Before each launch, 3 different crew members confirmed. Calculate wind force and test results as a shooter. Delicious desserts are a great way to boost morale. They are responsible. Balancing aircraft requirements with equipment, the need for a transmitter. In flight, pilots need to process constantly changing information from the location of other aircraft, finally reach the target location until the last minute. All are likely to change. For pilots, the U.S. Navy's aircraft carriers, running out of fuel over a battlefield means death. Although it is possible to refuel in the air, but the process must be fast and efficient. Even experienced pilots. This is also a very difficult adventure. Pilot, the blue object slowly approaches the end of the fuel pipe. They need the same speed. Fly at a precise altitude. Let the probe lock the position for a period of 3 months. After adding oil, pilots and Li Aoji drivers will enter a group of aircraft hovering at a fixed altitude, a multi-story aircraft circling in formation, and wait for orders to attack. But in the enemies, there are many threats in the sky. Plus, in Afghanistan at that time, risk of crash in rough, mountainous terrain. Once the fighter enters the aircraft group, just the food aspect. There is a tiered standby route. Aircraft in standby tracks circling the battlefield at a forbidden height, waiting for their order to attack. When they return home after completing, they also have to face the Navy. The most stressful part of aviation. That is to land safely on the aircraft carrier. Compared to the runway, the landing zone on an aircraft carrier is very small. It will cost more than $20 million. The fleet commander radio. Direct contact with returning pilots. Keep them on track. Confirm wind speed and progressive angle. All data must be in strict to ensure landing within the parameters of the grid. The unexpected thing is landing on an aircraft carrier, equivalent to our MB-100. The pilot needs to reach full power. If the aircraft fails to catch one of the arresting, then the plane will be pulled up and fly again. If you don't keep running, it could cause death. A large amount of supplies are transferred to the ship every month. From aircraft fuel to ordnance, 7 months at sea. The Enterprise aircraft carrier will consume nearly $3 million in food, and some people must doubt whether it is true or not. For these crew members, the biggest torment is being separated from my family for a long time. 8,000 aircraft movements in 2,100 of which were in combat. These are all successful. Examining the crew of the USS Enterprise, the flight team's last day on station. This is the only day that Sagittarius can wear a robe. All aircraft on the Enterprise must be on the carrier. Take off before entering port. According to public information, a day later they arrived in Norfolk. The entire Air Force was sent into the air, returned to their base. This day marks the last day of the shooter. As a tradition, they want justice. The last shot taken was their boots. An estimated 10,000 people lined the deck the next day. They have been waiting here for a long time, waiting for their loved ones. A U.S. Navy ship. Sailors, as they have done for generations, lined up on the deck in their uniforms. They finally embraced their loved ones. The pilot flew the fighter back to the base. This time the return. It also means that the nuclear battle is coming. Supercarriers are the cornerstone. It is a mobile combat airfield. At any time, Mimis and nuclear-powered aircraft carriers deploy superior any day that the president wakes up. And there is his first question is inevitably going to be, where are the carriers the primary mission of an aircraft carrier is to jet fighter fully loaded, take off into battle. On an aircraft carrier like Lee Coinhow, more than 4,500 tons of ammunition. There are 90 chefs, trained ammunition operators. Assemble the ammunition here. Here is the carefully protected assembly. They are assembling a Mk-80 series bomb. This bomb has a tail fin on the back. Improves at the same time, the front of the bomb is also equipped, can enhance the penetration, but operators are required to install safety switches. Check the bomb. They provided meals to near a pneumatic crane lifted the bomb. Transfer from assembly table to cart. Ready to go to the flight deck. But the operators must be. It takes 1 minute to assemble a bomb. The bombs were transported to the flight deck. Right string buffer. After the final inspection, they were handed over. Squadron unit 5,000 people is like a rural town. These bombs were hung on the fighter planes by them. The flight deck does not accommodate space for pneumatic cranes. Therefore, the squadron's 6 ammunition operators, you can only manually place the bomb, hanging on the wing of a fighter plane. For easy installation, they use a metal rod. Finally, the bomb was safely next ammunition. Every time we go out to sea, operators will install the detonation fuse for the bomb on this mobile battlefield. There are many well-trained pilots and advanced fighters. Except the pilot, most of the crew members are engaged in support work. Fighter jets are the core equipment of aircraft carrier flight squadrons, with good reliability and excellent performance in war. F-18 fighter jet becomes the U.S. Navy, ensuring chicken wing freedom for everyone. It is a multi-role fighter. can easily complete the attack on the ground and air target missions. Reagan's Air Wing includes for fighter squadrons about 50 fighter jets. There are two types of F-18. They are priced $29 million Bumblebee, the retired USS Enterprise, and a $57 million Super Hornet. The Super Hornet is 18 meters long, one-way reach 14 meters. Top speed exceeds 2,200 kilometers per hour. Flying at this speed, aircraft produce sonic booms. It also has 11 external attachment points. Can be connected to the Global Positioning System, guided bomb radar or thermal infrared guided missiles, and ordinary unguided bombs and other weapons. The data that can be found is more detailed. In addition, the Super Hornet has a 20mm caliber aircraft cannon. Its rate of fire is up to 6 on the aircraft carrier. All ammunition is stored in 34. There are two 30-ton holes on the aircraft. They are connected with a giant iron chain over. Each chain link weighs more than 160 kilograms. It is connected by a winch. When the aircraft carrier, there are more than 5,000 people on the ship. Raise or lower the wool chain by rotating it. These giant chains are stored in the chain like everything else on an aircraft carrier. Boat for chain. And the machinery that moves them are huge. Naturally big. Terry Craft has served in the U.S. Navy. 20 years of service. He spent most of his time bridge and subordinates. More than 180 kilograms of flour are meeting when he is on break. He can go back to the captain's lounge. Everything here is to pay tribute to President Reagan. Arranged in tribute. The whole room is modeled after the Red Room of the White House. Arrange. Kevin Couch served as the deputy captain of the... He is responsible for the operation of the aircraft carrier. One of Kevin's responsibilities is to... The entire aircraft carrier was thoroughly inspected. In addition, there are more. It usually takes a week to check. The aircraft carrier will be cleaned every. Rear Admiral Charles Martorell. It was Lee Cunho's aircraft carrier, the commander of the entire battle group. He is responsible for coordinating and 7 other warships accompanying the aircraft carrier to ensure safe and efficient completion of tasks. When an aircraft carrier is in danger, there is a group that is going. It is said that Americans love sweets very much. They are the newspaper group. Dismantling the damaged bomb. To deal with unexploded, their job is the most dangerous on an explosive ordnance disposal team. One of the tasks is to remove naval mines. In the waters a few kilometers, the bomb disposal team is undergoing They jumped into the sea to complete the then returned to the low-altitude hovering helicopter. So this data is not surprising at all. USS Ronald Reagan. It is the most advanced weapon in the United. American supercarriers are the most powerful naval strike weapons in the world. The aircraft carrier is about 334 meters long. It's 20 stories high. Displacement 97,000 tons. Sailing speed exceeding 30 knots. Capacity 5,000 to 6,000 by tell people. Of course, there are many other food ingredients. I manage a nuclear power plant with 5,000 people squeezing in between. That's life on an aircraft carrier. The U.S. Navy's 10 Nimitz-class ships. Nuclear-powered supercarrier. The largest battleship in the world. They are expensive. The cost of building the USS Ronald Reagan is for point, even though the value is applied to him. Billions of dollars in advanced technology. 3 tons of bacon are consumed on each, but he still needs people to run it. The most important one is 400. Highly trained flight deck crew. They must pay full attention, strictly follow because the flight deck. There are roaring engines everywhere, huge machines and dangerous weapons. Here, any mistake could have disastrous consequences. 60,000 potatoes. Aircraft carrier and flight. There are 4 areas related to the job. They are hangar, flight deck, main flight control center, and air traffic control center. The hangar is located below the flight deck. Here are innovative technologies such as folding wings, event personnel camp, dozens of planes packed into the aircraft carrier, 10+ ton burger. In a limited space, even the helicopter's horizontal rotor when the plane is ready to take off. He first took a giant hydraulic lift, ascend to the flight deck. There are 4 hydraulic lifts on the aircraft, each can connect to 23-ton aircraft. Send it to the flight deck above. Aircraft dispatch ship, 2 tons of heat. Flight deck dispatcher. They work in a small cabin on the island. Derek Johnson is the person in charge here. His position is aircraft dispatcher. His job is to coordinate the flight deck. Fly with the aircraft in the hangar. Maintenance, refueling, and bomb loading. If you can't answer 3 calls at the same time, phone or talking to people at the same time, you can't do this job. Dogs, etc. Besides, despite the enormous pressure, deck dispatcher at work. Used. It is a low-tech tool. That's the status display board. It is actually a model of the flight deck, and this model looks simple. It's actually very practical. The dispatcher based on the surveillance video sent real-time update. The food standard is also top-notch. There is a small model of each when the aircraft moves on the deck. The mobilizer will move the corresponding aircraft status pins. Nuts, bolts, and coils are marked. For example, a red pin indicates the aircraft is on standby. You can take off at a green pin indicates that the aircraft has a flight The nut indicates that the equivalent to the level of a middle-class American family. This status display version is things that existed before, but it is still used on aircraft carriers today. The primary mission of an aircraft carrier is to allow fighter jets take off and land in a flying armor. On board, the flight deck covers an area of more than 18,000 on the angled cleats of the carrier. Even some star hotels can't compare with it. 2 catapults each, responsible for launching the aircraft into the air. There are 3 strong cables they are called barricades. The purpose is to stop the plane quickly on the runway. Elsewhere on the deck, the crew members all have any mistakes may result in accidents or injuries. There are constant takeoffs and landings of carrier-based aircraft. Timing and speed are everything. Steak and ham. To ensure the safety of all staff, U.S. Navy engineers are researching. A set of equipment was issued to facilitate the rapid identification of crew members. Colored work clothes for identity. Marking system. On the flight deck, the colors of the crew's uniforms represent their job responsibilities. Aircraft dispatcher in yellow overalls, responsible for guiding the movement of aircraft on the deck. Fried chicken. The one wearing green overalls is the equipment operator. They are responsible for securing the aircraft to the catapult and operation barrier. The one wearing brown overalls is an air. They are responsible for managing the aircraft on the flight deck. The one wearing purple overalls is a fuel responsible for refueling the aircraft. The one wearing red overalls is an ordnance responsible for managing all weapons and ammunition. For these people, lobster and all kinds of vegetables and fruits are available. Communication is crucial, but the roar of the aircraft engine will drown out everyone's voice. So they rely on gestures to communicate. Looking down at the flight deck of an aircraft carrier ensures smooth flight operations. It is the mission of the aircraft carrier main flight control center. It is the nerve center of aircraft carrier flight operation. It is located on the 7th floor of the island. When the weather is good, there are 2 people in charge of the main flight control. They are all experienced naval pilots, responsible for commanding all flight activity. At this time, Tim Sellers orders a plane to take off. Good weather with high visibility is called a ride. It is also the best environment for deck flying. USS Ronald Reagan Maine can command at very fast speed. Catapulting and landing. You can also have a barbecue on the deck. One aircraft can be launched every 30 seconds. And landing a plane is only. It takes 1 minute. Main Flight Control Center. We must ensure that every aircraft can take. Its primary task is to stay tuned for flight activities, to control all actions. The U.S. Navy, hard training and rich experience. Bonfire. Of course, it also relies on a lot of advanced technology. Integrated communication in one of the important tools. This system lists all the launches. Aircraft number. Pilot's name. Fuel status. The main flight control center is the brain of the aircraft carrier. But when the sun goes down or the weather turns bad, because the food is so good, the pilots, you need to be in the air, under the command of the traffic control center. Flight. Air traffic control center. Located below the flight deck, close to the island. This is responsible for control the movement. The center tracks planes with radar. It is said that in the U.S. Navy, radio communication system to convey landing order, responsible for guiding the pilot. A very important flight operations on an aircraft carrier require close cooperation with staff. When all work is ready, when the aircraft is ready to eject, the captain will order the carrier to sail against the wind. The wind over the flight deck can make the plane winds even more when it takes off. There are 70% male soldiers and 45%. Then the main flight control center took over. Ejection procedure begins. Nimiski. Aircraft carriers rely on steam catapults to launch. There are 4 on the USS Ronald Reagan. Steam catapults. To parallel decks below. Piston in cylinder. The piston is connected to the shuttle. Overweight. The shuttle is a steam catapult. The only part exposed on the flight deck. The pilot taxied the plane to the rear of the catapult. Equipment for wearing green overalls. Operator. Attach the aircraft's nose. A tow bar connects the aircraft to the slide before the plane takes off. A brake lever will hold the aircraft in place. Reagan nuclear reactor. Among them, 6% even reached severe. Raw steam is stored in steam accumulators. These high-pressure steam then enter the cylinder of the catapult. The catapult controls are embedded in the flight deck. Catapult operator monitors steam pressure. Steam pressure must be adjusted for aircraft. If the pressure is too low, the plane will not be able to take off. Too much pressure. Obesity. The front landing gear of the aircraft may be pulled off. Jet deflector at rear of tail. It will rise a few seconds before ejection. The crew on the deck crouch down to avoid being blown away by the air. Although this job is dangerous, but for the strictly trained crew members, this is just their daily work. Carrier pilots understand, although takeoff is full of excitement. In addition, but landing is much more dangerous than from the day the aircraft carrier. Landing on an aircraft carrier is a dangerous thing. Everything may seem fine until the plane lands. But it is easy to have an accident during landing. Even now, landing remains a challenge for Navy pilots. The speed of the plane when it landed is approximately 240 kilometers per hour. They must be approximately. France is one of the few European and American countries 240 meters long deck hook. Blocking lock. The aircraft carrier will sway with the ups and downs of the waves. This sounds like an impossible task, but carrier-based pilots, the impossible becomes possible. Like George Degener, carrier-based aircraft pilots like Lieutenant Luo Shang, both have been in flight school. Received about 3 years of training. A country that is both learning how to land on an aircraft carrier. During this period, they will also be eliminated through layers of examinations. Finally became a carrier-based aircraft pilot. When preparing to land, the pilot will establish contact with the landing. The landing signalman was not flying that day. Ship on mission. Aircraft pilot. They stood at the stern to help other pilots land. Landing signalman in white overalls. Therefore, they also regard this beauty. They communicated with the pilot by radio, correcting the pilot's flight path, and watch the aircraft approach from the monitor. The pilot must focus on a key instrument. That is the lighting column lowering device. There is a set of yellow light called meatball. Yellow light indicates the angle between the aircraft and the deck, bringing the spirit of food to the aircraft carrier. If the aircraft approaches the runway at a 3.5, the yellow light is right in the middle of. If the landing signal source turns on the red light, warn the pilot to stop landing. To avoid crashing, the pilot should be within 15 to 18 seconds of maintain the correct angle of descent. The aircraft relies on parallel 3 arresting locks across the flight deck for landing. On the USS Naval, the pilot has to use a tail hook about 2 meters long. Hook one of the blocking locks. Each arresting lock passes through a set of pulleys and connected to the piston of a large hydraulic cylinder. When the tail groove of the aircraft hooks, the arresting lock will pull the piston of the hydraulic cylinder. Fluid in hydraulic cylinder. The body is like a giant shock absorber. Absorb the huge kinetic energy of the aircraft. Stop the plane in less than 2 seconds. All chefs graduated from. If we take into account the night Flight operations on aircraft carriers have become a navy, the most dangerous aviation industry. The most challenging thing. Many combat missions are conducted at night, under the cover of color. Therefore, pilots must adapt to night flying. But at night, the sky is dark. Pilots can easily get lost. Naval Culinary School in London. When landing at night, the pilots will turn their attention to guidance, aircraft landing. On the light injector. However, they usually can't tell the difference between an aircraft and a carrier, the distance between. So the landing is often sudden. All the work that goes on a super carrier all rely on the support of powerful electricity. His cooking skills are comparable to those of Michelin chefs. Nimi! There are 2 nuclear reactors on the aircraft carrier. Inside a nuclear reactor occurs in controlled TV reactions by atoms. Nuclear fission releases huge. The energy used to heat water under high pressure. This hot water is then passed through a heat exchanger to produce high-pressure steam. Drive the steam turbine to drive the generator to generate electricity. High-pressure steam also drives the steam catapult. It is definitely better than ever. And the huge steam turbine inside the aircraft carrier. The turbine is lifted through a huge driven by 4 huge propellers. There are 2 50-ton giant rudders at the rear of the aircraft carrier, responsible for controlling direction. Aboard the Reagan, all equipment relies on nuclear reactors. The electricity generated is used to drive. Display channel from radar. From hangar doors to aircraft elevators. Needless to say, the refueling cycle of a nuclear reactor is 20 years. Now the US Navy plans to use energy produced by nuclear reactors, driving electromagnetic catapult. This ejection technique combines speed, strength, and flexibility. It'll be the most capable launcher out there in the world. Unable to meet future missions that we probably don't even know about at this point in time. Cheese Steak. November 16, 2009. Northrop Grumman. Workers at Newport News Shipyard. The keel of the USS Ford has been installed. This is the new generation of high tech in the United States. The first super carrier to replace steam catapults with electromagnetic catapults. The Ford aircraft carrier adopts a brand new design. It's a risky decision. The US Navy is betting big on this. Seafood and bread of all flavors are available. If the electromagnetic catapult convert the USS Ford to steam, catapult aircraft carrier, it will cost a lot of money. The $14 billion Ford aircraft carrier can only be scrapped. US Navy, only by turning to construction. Nimi's using steam catapult, if the US Navy can. During holidays, successfully installed electromagnetic catapult. The rewards will be huge. Because the steam catapult. Soon it will not be enough for the 21st century. The Navy's needs. Steam catapult launches aircraft. Like launching a plane from a cannon. All the force goes through the front of the aircraft. The landing gear is transmitted to the entire fuselage. This will shorten the life of the carrier-based aircraft. There will also be foie gras and grilled snails. 1/3 shorter than a plane taking off from land. Even more. Using steam. Bomb. There are certain weight restrictions on aircraft taking off from a launch vehicle. This leads to some lighter aircraft cannot operate. The core component of the electromagnetic catapult is the electric magnetic linear motor. He works on the same principle as a roller coaster. French traditional cuisine. Same motor used. Linear motor is an exhibition standard motor. When current is delivered to the motor, a linear driving force. The U.S. Navy technology leads to a new generation supercarrier catapult. But the premise is engineers' R&D work must be successful. Speaking of food, exist U.S. Navy in Lakehurst, New Jersey, Aviation Systems. Command engineers built this. Same actual size. Fully functional aircraft carrier electromagnetic catapult model. The linear motor is located on this 110-meter long runway. Under. Engineers use a tackle that weighs the same as the aircraft. Simulate the ejection process. A big country like India will naturally not fall behind to test and improve the system. Precise control means compared with steam catapults, electromagnetic catapult can shooting lighter or heavier aircraft. Electromagnetic catapult accelerates smooth, less damage to the aircraft. However, developing this complex system is not easy. The electromagnetic catapult project is already over budget, $1.3 billion. They were one of the earliest aircraft carriers. Progress after 7 months. But wreck. The electromagnetic catapult research development team of STIR is working with all our strength. U.S. Navy. In the challenge. A long history of pushing the limits of technology. It is this bold strategy. The United States successfully developed a strong, large aircraft carrier. One of the gourmet players. After more than 1,000 simulated ejection tests, electromagnetic catapult to enter next phase of testing. U.S. Navy test. Pilot Daniel Ladoka became the first to use electromagnetic catapult takeoff. December 18, 2010, the research and development team conducted the first electromagnetic catapult experiment of launching a manned aircraft. Staff carefully cleaned. Everyone knows that Indians invented curry. Over 3,600 meters of runway. Pick up all the debris on the runway to avoid being sucked into the aircraft's engine. When the sun comes out, the test pilot landed the Hornet on the runway. Daniel Ladoka is no stranger to launching slingshot. He has been flying the Bumblebee for experienced more than 400 catapult launches. Electromagnetic bomb. The test of launching a manned aircraft was supposed to be completed in a few months. Therefore, their aircraft carrier restaurant It was done before. However, failures and design modifications after the project progress and budget overruns. Staff. The front of the fighter. The landing gear is connected to the slide of the electromagnetic catapult. There can be no mistakes in this test. Everyone must focus. Bomb. The food is mainly curry flavored. The operators in the launcher control room were ready. The pilot signaled. Test start. All the efforts in the past are for this moment. Electromagnetic catapult. The first test of launching a manned aircraft was successful. In the next few months, the R&D team successfully conducted dozens of ejections. The test proves the reliability of the electromagnetic catapult. May 2011, like chicken curry, the first batch of electromagnetic catapult parts. Newport News Shipbuilding. The USS Ford became the world's first aircraft carrier. World War II is at a critical juncture. 400 daily battleships all participated in the Battle of Leyte Gulf. Japan at this time. St. Leah is a secret weapon. Americans know almost nothing about this. Fish curry, lamb curry, etc. They only know his name is Musashi. Musashi has a displacement of 70 so far. The largest battleship in the world. The size is almost twice that of other warships. The ship is equipped with an 457mm caliber saw gun. The builders at that time. The evaluation of this strategic ship is that, however, it's just a big curry stew. In the First War, this super battleship was sunk. But the Musashi has always shrouded in unknown mystery. Why is it called the giant that never remained silent, but was quickly sunk? Is it the US Air Force that is overwhelmed, or is it a fatal design flaw? Nearly 1,000 crew members on board died at sea. Was on how? Although it doesn't look that good. The earliest conception was born in the 1930s. At that time, Japan focused on outward expansion. However, the continued intervention of friendly America, the United States considered this a violation of this regulation requires the United States. Japan can only build 60 ships. This means that the Japanese battleships it will definitely be smaller than the US Navy. So in the end, Japan decided to win but it is still 100 times better than the food of the Indian. Quality means building giant strategic ships. By size. It is difficult to suppress the US's This new battleship was called TIG. And promote this battleship. Compared to the powerful King Kong, the time came to March 1938. Construction of the Wazong Ho also began. The location is at the long-standing The gantry crane he used was built at that time. It can be seen from this. Still in use today. This construction operation has been carried out in secret. A huge curtain was drawn around the venue. The entire shipyard is surrounded by watertight. Even the residents of Japan at that time. I can't see what's going on inside. On December 7, 1941, a great war came to the West. Japanese Navy attacks Pearl Harbor using aircraft carriers. Carrier-based air power for the U.S. fleet. The above aircraft carrier powers have brought a heavy blow. August 1942. The Musashi begins a secret oath. Be careful to avoid the enemy's spies before. The offensive and defensive weapons are finally put into testing. The main weapon on the Wuzhang. It consists of 3 seats, each equipped with the turret of 3 Type 92 for air. The caliber of these aero cannons reaches 460 millimeters. Therefore, the topic is quite important. These were the largest aero cannons in use around the world to protect yourself. Gozo is equipped with heavy armor. This is also the final hull armor. The steel used in the armor is made from low phosphorus iron. These materials, all of them came from the Japanese occupation of Northeast China, mined in secret. The then 19-year-old ambassador was controversial, but life on an aircraft carrier is not, and hundreds of young crew members serving on a strategic ship. For them, the Gozo was a technological marvel. For the descendants, Musashi is the King Kong of the sea. When the Musashi joined the Japanese, the warriors are about to turn around. Because the United States has never accepted the Navy, Air Force. At this time, as long as there is an aircraft carrier, the battle will turn around. In addition to, at the same time, new dive bombers and a new torpedo bomber, especially the Mark, higher launch height than Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence agencies seized up information material with a large collection. Based on this, they guessed that the Musashi displacement estimated 42,000 tons. But then they will find there is also fitness and entertainment. These guesses are far too conservative. June 1944. The US Navy successfully forced the Japanese fleet, 60 ships in total, 450 aircraft withdrawn from the Western Pacific. The battle. It was later called the Mariana Fire Machine Competition. In this battle, almost all Japanese aircraft were captured. Half of Japan's aircraft carriers were lost. In the busy work, the almost complete loss of naval aviation power in the United States, General MacArthur. At that time, they were preparing to capture the Philippines, Japan's gateway. October 20th, MacArthur landed on the east side of Leyte Island. Japan at this time still want to fight a decisive naval battle with 2 huge ships that the Americans had never seen before. First, this is the Musashi and the Taiga. October 24th, 1944. Everyone, Japanese Admiral Toshida. South leads the Central Fleet. 26 warships enter the western coast, 2 other smaller Japanese fleets from the north and south, heading to the sea. The Battle of Leyte Bay was imminent. U.S. military pilot. They were the first to see the Musashi and the Great American will be happy to show their strengths. The U.S. 7th Fleet go to defend the landing site on Leyte Island. The 3rd Fleet marched north in 3 groups, the size of one of the large aircraft carriers. There were only 2 ships approaching, half the size of the Japanese battleship, Japanese Central Fleet. It also has 20 for other warships. On the morning of October 24, 1944, over the western coast, in addition to singing and dancing, more than 40 American fighter planes gathered. This includes the Hellcat fighter, Helldiver and Avenger, torpedo bomber, fighter planes strafed at low altitude to suppress enemy fire. But heavy fire came from the 100 ships of the Musashi, anti-aircraft gun emplacement. Leaning out. At this time, 11 planes flew towards the Musashi, a 900 kilograms torpedo. There is also high diving. It hit the left stern of the Musashi and exploded. The Musashi survived the first round of attacks by the US military, but the continuous fierce attack. The Japanese suffered heavy losses. Next, a bomb landed on the deck of the Musashi. Heihaus escaped the siege. 7:39 p.m. Hard hit, but still working out. The complete Musashi flipped and in order to uncover the mystery of the Musashi, this outdoor sport. First, we must find the missing behemoth. February 2011. Daily Joint Research Team came to Africa, Green Soldier's central western coast. They took a photo taken by an American pilot 70 years ago. Compare the location of the following photos. The expedition was initiated by the late Microsoft co-founder, Paul Allen. Rob Kraft. It makes people's heart beat wildly. Responsible for conducting all underwater operations, David Moggan. She made a career out of searching for lost shipwrecks. For several months, they combed through American and Japanese military archive. Hopefully these clues can help them find the Musashi. By American pilot. Some aerial photos taken during. It can be seen. Soldiers stand on the deck of an aircraft carrier several dozen meters high. The US military launched a final fierce offensive. From the background of the photo, they think this is the closest to the western coast. Terrain contours a few kilometers to the south. At the same time, utilize location data reported by the area gradually light double number. They identified a high probability search area. The tools used for this search: multi-wave number lateral shift. This is a sonar device mounted on the hull of a ship. Jump directly into the vast ocean. A beam of sound waves is sent downward to scan the seafloor topography. This results in an image with a scan width of 1.6, even the size of the Musashi, equivalent to a 75-story building. But he was in the vast unknown sea, but as small as a speck of dust. It's very difficult to find him. They spent a total of 4 days. The search for this high probability area was but unfortunately, they also have a bullet fireworks show at night. No signs of the Wazang number were found. Next steps. Their focus turned to the second clue. This is the bow that the pilot photographed at that time. They use cardboard boxes. View the field of view of the simulated camera, then calculate the new search area. It's the 14th day of the search. Finally, they found something. A sonar scan. Countless bullets streaked across the dark sky. Found a delightful goal, but soon they found out that this was not the Wazang. The area scan. It has reached more than 3,600 square kilometers. It's about the size of Rhode Island. Still nothing, so they thought. A better tool must be found. To search the rugged seafloor, Plus, the target time for this search has also ended. High standard of living. They can only look forward to coming back later. Late February 2015. They resumed the search for the Musashi. This time they brought the exploration artifact. He installed it on Zhang Yuhao's expedition yacht. The yacht is also equipped with the most advanced deep-sea equipment. This is an autonomous underwater vehicle, capable of diving to a depth of 1,500 meters. It has a side-scan biosensor system installed on it, can scan and provide images on both sides. This is just the tip of the iceberg of aircraft carrier maintenance costs. The vehicle dived to a depth of working more than 100 meters below the seabed, mapping the seafloor. When a suspicious object is found, they used a remotely operated vehicle. He needs a small. It takes more than 1,600 meters to reach the bottom of the sea. Staff, carefully operate the remote-controlled submersible. Soon, throughout the Cold War, they found a Japanese warship with Japanese characters on it. Evidence of the wreckage. He is the Musashi. We must find an archer. The archer's period has disappeared. But the Japanese royal family. The outline of the chrysanthemum article is still clearly discernible. This time, the Musashi disappeared 70 years later. His remains were finally found. There are also shoes and helmets for the crew. The US Navy has at least 15 aircraft carriers. Location of the sinking of the Cinque Terre. Distance from Kingshuang destroyer. The reported sinking location is quite far away. Judging by the wreckage, except for Cambridge, all others were destroyed. So what caused the ship to? Extensive damage to the body. The last wreckage found. It is a huge 460mm caliber cannon on the body. March 2016. But in 1993, after the end of the Cold War, a group of Japanese experts met in Tokyo. Pictures of the underwater wreckage they will search for, putting it together. Finally got one. Unique 3D wreckage model. Only then did we finally see the huge body of the Wuzan. It is 263 meters long, bigger than 3 large jumbo jets. The damaged part of the Archer's left string. It was probably caused by a torpedo attack. Forrestal-class aircraft carrier retired. The last photo via Gozo. It also shows that his Archer part is silent. This makes people believe his silence was caused by the flooding here. But another study found, even if Musashi Hiroshi's Archers are filled with seawater, it won't silence him. In order to find out the real answer to Musashi Hiroshi's, they started their investigation from Musashi Hiroshi's birthplace. In Japan, Mitsubishi Shipping has been. The number of US aircraft carriers is also decreasing sharply. Found a document with a number of 5. This is an original design that has never been made public. Experts compared the wreckage fragments with original design. The origin of these fragments was determined. All parts, all protected by heavy steel armor, to ensure that the 5 internal organs will not be silent. Finally, it was discovered through the steel plates of the wreckage. All this armor has fallen off because the lifespan of an aircraft carrier is through the understanding of armor installation process. I found that they were all attached with hair. Once the rivet is loosened, the armor layer won't last long. The insulation of the 5 internal organs consumption armor used to deflect incoming artillery shells. His original intention. It is used to defend against bombardment from other warships. However, after the 5th burial, the most common damage was caused by and aerial bomb attacks. The subsequent maintenance costs are absolutely staggering. These weapons were beyond their expectation. If the attacking aircraft heads down, a torpedo hits the armor plate joint. This may cause the rivets to fall off, causes seawater to flood in. Facts have once again proved. Gozo responds to the armor-piercing bombs coming from the air. No solution. The Rex deck has multiple diameters. A hole nearly 1 meter long, until 2008. This is apparently the power of these armor-piercing bombs. So from the beginning, his design is no match for these weapons. But when the 5 internal organs are silent, still a hole. What made him finally? The seabed is torn apart. The area where the remains of the 5 Zankans reach 1 square kilometer. Experts believe that it must have sunk to the bottom of the sea. The US Congress approved the construction of it. There was a huge explosion that tore him apart, because the 5 internal organs are consumed in the decisive battle. In the end, only the main gun was fired a few times. It is estimated that there were about 160 shells and 100 tons of explosives, also stored in the ammunition depot of the 5 internal organs. When he leans into silence, damage caused by an explosion below the second main gun, which led to his eventual wreckage. 1 square kilometer of seafloor. A new supercarrier. In addition, with the silence after Gozo, it also means the end of the era of strategic ships. Then came the era of the aircraft carrier. Okay, that's the end of today's video. If you are interested in this video, welcome to subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Ford class. Ford aircraft carrier, named after President Gerald Ford. This 32-kilometer-long coastline, Newport News, Virginia. Captain's Place. This is also one of the 2 places in the world where you can build one of the nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Since the 1930s, this large shipyard covers an area of 2.2 million square meters. More than 20,000 employees work in ships. 70% of the US warships were born here, building the core of an aircraft carrier. At the shipyard No. 12, it is 670 meters long. At 76 meters wide, it is also the largest dry ship in the Western Hemisphere. November 2009. Ford began construction here. The first piece is the keel or the bottom of the boat. 1,800 tons of weld metal, 5,000 kilometers of cable, 90,000 pipelines. This ship has millions of parts, requires a lot of materials. Parts material from more than 5,000 suppliers in 48 states. The first thing that is used most is steel. This is also the largest steel processing plant in the world. An area larger than 10 football fields. It's been here since the 1880s. We've modified it over the years to handle Ford. Steel required. They make the world's most complex heavy processing equipment. Total investment exceeds $700 million. One of them is a pit on a huge steel plate. A huge heavy press weighing 5,000 tons. Pressed on steel plate. The role of the pit. It is made by tying naval aircraft to the deck of an aircraft carrier. The captain had to blast out more than 7,000 steel wire nests. All of these devices, they are all tailor-made for the Ford air. Once each steel plate is completed, it was sent to the shipyard's press area. Here, workers weld various steel plate parts, every room that makes up the aircraft carrier. Individual rooms are combined into larger modules. These are the big pieces that make up an aircraft carrier. What is different from the previous aircraft carrier construction is, Ford's modules are larger and heavier. A large module may consist of 20 to 40 compartments. After the captain completes each module, add mechanical equipment required for shipping and equipped with pipeline, electrical components, and other devices. Then these super lifts carry. Each module is at least as big as a house, from 80 to 900 tons. The construction time of a single module, from 2 months to 1 year. Final step. Just put. Move the assembled large module into the ship. Then the various sections of the ship were transported into the ship, modules to combine. The whole process is like playing with Lego blocks for shipyards. Lifting a 932-ton stern. It's an important moment. It includes more than 30 modules. It costs more than 80,000 formulas to build. There is an operating room inside. All tank and storage room and power distribution room. To this end, need to use the special called Big Blue. Crane is also the symbol of the shipyard. It can be seen from kilometers away. It is the largest gantry crane in the Western Hemisphere. To bracket straddle the dry boat, then move up and down along the guide rail, effectively attached to the bracket attached in the middle. This gantry crane is 71 meters high, weighing 4,500 tons. When lifting, the engineer needs to check the stern section first. Then lift. He placed 12. Standing on a large steel column on the ground, the driver sits on a boat several dozen meters high. Perform crane movement operations. Dozens of workers were on standby to prevent. The calling process was completed in, at this point, the construction of the aircraft carrier 2 years. They hoisted 162 super modules. Now the Ford is ready for installation. 611 tons of road construction. His design is very different from previous on all aircraft carriers. The island is dozens of sailors work on the 7th floor, responsible for tracking, navigating, and the island is essentially a control tower, so the bridge is there. Some of the flight controls are there is a place to put masts and radars and antennas. Island building is now an essential part of aircraft carrier operations. The earliest aircraft carriers were cargo ships, converted from a strategic ship or cruiser. So I didn't see it at all. A flight deck was built on top. Therefore, The deck proved to be an effective landing and takeoff platform, but the pilots soon realized it's very difficult to manage these aircraft. The wheelhouse is below the deck. It also obstructs the view of navigation. This ultimately led to the formation after the island was built. Ford's construction is 96% complete. This is the second of 3 searches for Ford. Kennedy has also begun cutting steel. Just then, U.S. congressional discussion. Ford is $1 billion over budget. I need to understand why the Navy has been unable to control costs on this program. I'm also reluctant to support additional funding for the second carrier, CVN-79, until a Navy and the shipbuilder get Ford-class carrier costs under control. October 2013, construction project reaches its biggest milestone. That's water ingress from dry shipping. President Ford's daughter, Susan, helps with final checks, then open the valve of dry goods No. 12 and continue to inject 100 million gallons of seawater in less than a day. U.S. Navy, a new class of aircraft carrier will float for the first time. The baptism ceremony will be held. The United States ship Gerald R. Ford. May God bless the ship and all. Ford was then moved to the other side of the shipyard, completing the final testing phase. There is still a long way to go before delivery. The biggest obstacle facing aircraft carriers, it is the integration of new technologies loaded on it. While the United States is spending a lot of money to build aircraft carriers, China, but they are actively developing new weapons to destroy aircraft carriers. The deadliest is the Dongfeng 21 anti. It can fly more than 16,000 kilometers at 10 times. It only takes a few minutes. The aircraft carrier and its value. $3 billion plane blown to ashes. People can't help but ask whether aircraft carriers are really outdated. They believe that the Navy was not preparing for modern war by continuing to build large, expensive nuclear aircraft carriers inside the Pentagon. Aircraft carrier supporters believe these doubters not fully understood graded defensive capabilities of the new class of aircraft carrier. Ford is equipped with 2 types of missiles. Each one can easily shoot down enemy missiles, or if the enemy's firepower, passing the first round of the Ford countermeasures. He also had to deal with the carrier's advanced weapon systems. It can be done in 1 minute. Fire for 1,500 rounds of armor-piercing, and future defenses will be tighter. The U.S. Navy is developing a new weapon. 6 high-intensity laser beams combined into a powerful energy. He can directly destroy the ship's sensors and detonated explosives on enemy ships. You can also, into seconds, destroy a drone directly. Then there's the railgun. Using electromagnetic propulsion instead of gunpowder, his ammunition can travel faster than the speed of sound, 6 times faster flight. Since World War II, the island location is the same for all aircraft carriers as the world's top. The most advanced nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Ford, only half the size of a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, and it is located closer to the stern. Put the Ford next to the Nemetsky. Even those who are not familiar with aircraft carriers can immediately see the difference. The difference is the flight deck in front of the island. More than 2,000 square meters. As a mobile airport at sea, this increase in area. This means that he is stronger than other aircraft carriers. Parking prices increased by 33% on the flight deck. The most eye-catching thing is the catapult and landing. Interception device. The main reason for the existence of aircraft carriers. It is to allow fighter jets to take off at any time around the world. 97,000-ton Nemi stimulus aircraft carrier. Hundreds of miles per day. It's not difficult to get a plane to a certain place quickly. The difficulty is to make them run fast on the 330-meter-long track. Take off quickly. Therefore, human intervention is necessary. Let the plane accelerate to 290 kilometers per hour. This requires the use of a catapult. Early naval carrier-based aircraft were small. Their ammunition is also very light, so it can accelerate and take off from the aircraft carrier on its own. No catapult was used. In the 1950s, airplanes began to become larger, also carried a lot of ammunition, then promoted the emergence of steam. Since 1955, each U.S. aircraft carrier, almost all rely on steam catapults. Make the plane take off, but steam power came at a price. The catapult device is the pilot and the fuselage were from 0 to 290 kilometers per hour. It will have a great impact on the aircraft and its onboard systems. Over time, requires a lot of manpower and financial resources to maintain. And below deck, it also requires a lot of manpower to operate. Steam catapult. Another problem is steam catapults cannot be fine-tuned to launch. Light aircraft developed by the Navy, including unmanned tankers and unmanned reconnaissance aircraft, etc. So Ford adopted them, the world's first new catapult design. It's called the electromagnetic launch system. It tests electricity without steam. This system consists of two long fixed beams. There is also a retractable car hanging on the plane. Composition of grain and oil coil. Electromagnetic force is generated when push the retractor forward, then pull the plane to eject from the deck. Actually, for years before the system was installed on the Ford, the U.S. Navy conducted tests on land. The first choice for testing is the FA-1800 Super Hornet. Next up is the 27-ton CRA Greyhound transporter. Finally, the U.S. Navy's new 35. But in 2014, the U.S. Navy shows almost 10% ejection failure rate. This makes it impossible really applied to new aircraft carriers. Also landing on an aircraft carrier. This is one of the most difficult maneuvers for naval pilots because aircraft carriers are always moving. Pilots need to constantly correct their angles. Almost since the beginning of carrier-based aircraft, aircraft are designed to hang on the wire across the deck. It's actually a rope stretched between the sandbags, trying to catch the falling biplane. Then it gradually developed into the current blocking lock. Now the blocking lock needs to be grasped. An airplane lands at a speed of 240 kilometers. When the plane lands, the hook at the tail of the aircraft needs to be hanging on the flight deck. 3 barriers in the landings, any one of the locks. When the arresting lock is engaged, the lock rope will be pulled out directly. Each end of the rope is connected to the flight deck on the lower hydraulic cylinder. The hydraulic cylinder system absorbs and helps the flight slow down until it stops. But the blockade currently used on the USS Ford, the device is more advanced. To the naked eye, it looks the same as before. But below deck, things are very different. The blockage on this system is connected onto drums below the flight deck. When the cable is pulled from the drum, due to the resistance of the electromagnetic motor, the role of mechanical and to slow down the plane. This system can automatically adjust to accommodate aircraft of different. Its benefit is to reduce stress and wear on the fuselage. Aircraft can also serve longer. Final section. Save a lot of manpower and material maintenance costs. As of 2015, this new barrier, the system development cost is close to $1 billion, more than 6 times the original, just as the outside world is concerned about the US. Amid various technical doubts, technicians are stepping up testing of the new aircraft injection system. They also firmly believe that overcoming difficulties is just around the corner. This is the world, the most advanced nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. The ship is equipped with the sharpest, the most powerful weapon system, and the best naval pilots. Life with this ultimate weapon. Never lack of excitement. But a little negligence, disasters will come unexpectedly. Next, we will go to the sea. Super Castle. Behind the scenes of the USS Ronald Reagan, understand his operation. This is a huge, a weapon with extremely high lethality. At sea, it is difficult for other warships to engage in a head-on confrontation with him. It is also a complex and sophisticated masterpiece of engineering, from the flight deck to the cockpit, then to the command center of the USS Ronald Reagan. As a mobile offshore airport, a super aircraft carrier is protected. It is also the maritime home for more than 5,000 crew members. The USS Beagle is not only and can move combat. Unlike ground forces, it can sail in international waters, quickly reach every corner of the world. This giant. The main mission of the Sea Monster is only one: provide offshore airport. Ensure the takeoff and landing of carrier-based aircraft. The USS Ronald Reagan is the first aircraft carrier built after the. Now he is about to leave for the Pacific Ocean. The length of the USS Ronald Reagan is equivalent to the height of the Empire State Building. In addition, the aircraft carrier is 20 stories high above the waterline alone. The full load displacement is 97,000. The maneuverability of the Reagan is also impressive. His speed was over 30 knots, equivalent to 56 kilometers. To ensure the full operation of the aircraft carrier, there are 5,000 to 6,000 crew members on board. Under the leadership of Colonel Kraft, don't dare to slack off. USS Beagle. It is the 9th ship built by the United States, Near-its-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. All construction facilities are not only equipped, and it's expensive. The total cost of the USS Beagle is for .5. His term of service is 50. Although this super aircraft carrier, equipped with expensive high-tech equipment, but it is humans who really control him. The key lies in 400 well-trained pilots. Deck crew, they have to stay focused. and strictly follow the procedures. Work in an unsteady manner. After all, the flight deck was filled with roaring jet engines. Giant machine. There are also terrible weapons of mass destruction. Here, any negligence could lead to fatal consequences. This is the most dangerous workplace in the world on this floating airport. Daily routine. Like a severe test. The primary mission of the USS Beagle is to launch and recover fighter jets. This work requires for departments on board, completed through collaboration, including hangar, flight deck, flight control center, and air traffic control center. The core hangar is located below the flight deck on level 3, area 7618 SKM. Here, a host of technical innovations, including folding wings, all come in handy. Crew, therefore, more efficiently fit the aircraft into a limited space. Even the helicopter's rotors can be folded up after the preparation is completed. Staff, through for hydraulic lifts. The aircraft was sent to the flight deck. Each hydraulic lift can accommodate to jets weighing more than 23,000 kilograms and lifted them 18 meters in 10 seconds. The person responsible for managing the movement of aircraft, flight deck controller. The control center is located on the cambridge of the aircraft carrier. Derek Johnson takes over, also known as the operator, as an aircraft controller. His main work is to coordinate the movement of aircraft on the flight deck and provide support when the aircraft is performing its mission, such as maintenance, refueling and loading weapons, etc. Johnson has not yet indicated that he is busy at work. If you can't answer 3 calls at once, you can't do 2 things at once. That's definitely not up to the job. The incredible thing is, under such tremendous pressure, they still use. It's a pretty primitive tool. It's actually a flight model of the deck and hangar. With the help of live video footage from the flight deck, workers can update the model's position in real time. Every aircraft on the flight deck. Here is a model instead. When the aircraft moves on the deck, the staff will move the model accordingly. To track the status of all aircraft, they use tacks, nuts, screws and coils as easy to remember symbols. However, the hangar and flight deck control. This is just the beginning of the mission. On the deck of an aircraft carrier, fighter, about to take off with the help of a catapult. The intensity of the work is beyond. The process of catapult takeoff is absolutely the flight deck area is 18,000. The deck was filled with noise. Noisy machine roar. Archer and left bow. The angled decks each have to catapults. Catapult the aircraft into the air. There are 3 strong steel cables at the end of the line. Bluefoot Institute. The purpose is to allow the aircraft to achieve a hook-stop landing anywhere on the deck. Staff. The movement of fuel and weapons must be done in an orderly manner. However, there is order and instability. Any negligence may lead to accidents or casualties. As planes continue to take off on the deck, landing, timing and speed become paramount to avoid personal injury. At the same time, in order to simplify the operation procedures, Naval Engineer. A rainbow clothing system was specially developed. On deck, different colors of clothing represent different divisions of labor. The person in yellow is the flight man responsible for directing aircraft movement. Man in green clothes are aircraft equipment operators and maintainers, responsible for hooking the aircraft onto the catapult and manage the column group. The test foreman in brown clothes, responsible for managing aircraft on the flight deck. The man in blue is also called sawdust or chain, responsible for flying. The machine is fixed in place. People wearing purple clothes are called grapes, a technician who specializes in adding fuel to air. The person wearing red is responsible. All weapons and ammunition. The man in silver is responsible for handling accidents with fire. Those in white are medical and security personnel. Here, communication between deck crews is crucial, but the roar of the jet engines drowned out everything, so they can only rely on gestures to interact with each other or communicate with the pilot. The plane taxied forward. Slide to the right and stop. When the plane is ready, order to launch the catapult. A bird's eye view of the entire. This is the role of the main flight control center. Main flight. The main flight control center is the god of flight missions. Through the center, located on the top floor of the 7-story building. Main Flight Control Center, including the flight commander and the deputy flight commander, also known as Sky Boss and Little Boss. They are responsible for directs all aircraft activity. Good weather and high visibility are called Condition 1. The personnel at the main flight control ability to issue commands at extremely catapulting and recovering aircraft. When the ejection process reaches its peak, every 30 seconds, a plane leaves the aircraft carrier, take off into the air. When transitioning to landing procedure, flight controller, able to recover 1 aircraft per minute, very fast takeoff and landing cycles, 2 to 3 times faster than land, main flight control center. Each aircraft must be monitored for ejection at the same time. We must also ensure that all aircraft can be on the aircraft carrier. Safe landing. Continuous takeoff. Landing can easily lead to chaos. At the main flight control center, the commander's entire focus is on flying. Mission deck operations it is inseparable from the clear division of labor among all staff, well-trained and experienced. Of course, there is also the help of advanced technical equipment in integrated communication information system. He will list the aircraft number of each pilot's life, fuel status. There is also the nearest alternate landing point. The main flight control center may be the brain of the aircraft carrier, but the success of each mission, it also depends on the air traffic control center. It's just below the deck. Close to Cambridge, the chief pilot is responsible for the daytime coordinate flights when weather is good, but when visibility is poor or when performing night missions, Air Traffic Control Center will take over. They track the plane using radar, landing order given by radio, helping the pilot find his jet. Fighter jets need to be launched smoothly. It's not an easy task. Instead, he needs the USS Ronald Reagan carrying pilots and deck crew. Close cooperation. When the aircraft is ready to eject, Captain ordered the pilot group to speed up. This extra sharp edge above the flight deck can give the aircraft takeoff, provides additional vitality. Afterwards, the personnel of the main flight control center took over the work. Ejection procedure started. The key to catapult launch lies in the steam catapult. This mechanical device, ability to push the aircraft along the deck. Make sure it gets in the air. The USS Ronald Reagan has a total of 4 aircraft catapults. Each catapult is 91 meters long. It consists of 2 pistons in parallel cylinders. Power stroke per piston. As long as a football field. The piston is connected to a movable slide, installed in the groove of the deck runway. When the pilot and the aircraft are ready, the aircraft taxis to the designated location. Equipment operator, or the green guy, guides the plane's nose wheel to the catapult, then hang the plane on the slide with a hook. Traction release lever negative, responsible for securing the aircraft in place until the ejection. The nuclear reactor heating steam generator of the beacon until the steam accumulator of the catapult, until filled with gas. At last, this high-pressure steam will fill the cylinders of the catapult. Catapult control cabin. It is a transparent control console protruding from the flight deck. The catapult commander is also closely monitoring the steam pressure of the catapult. The pressure must be adjusted according to the weight of the aircraft. This ensures that the catapult shooting at the correct speed. Pressure to low. It's hard to catapult an aircraft. Too much pressure. The ironing rack will break if you lift it forward. Before the launch, the crew will raise the jet behind the plane. The deflector now only has the traction release feeling to maintain. The plane is in place. The pilot starts the engine. Adjust your breathing and prepare for ejection. After the final salute, the shooter then presses the eject button. Tow release sends detachment from steam catapult. Propel the aircraft forward quickly. He's like a rocket slingshot. In just 2 seconds, it can make 28 fighter jets reach speed from rest, 265 kilometers. Catapulting an aircraft is not only dangerous, but for well-trained staff. This is just a daily routine formula. If catapult launches were fun, that would be much more dangerous. After emerging from the flight deck, landing is always dangerous. Everything is normal when entering the venue, but a reversal may occur at the last moment. Even today, he is also a Navy pilot. One of the most difficult the landing speed was about. It is necessary to hook the block in time on the 243-meter long runway barrier. The problem is that the deck runway is not fixed as landing on the deck. It sounds like a fairy tale, but the Navy can turn decay into magic. Odd pilot. First, you have to study at a flight school, 2.5 to 3 years. Then we have to pass the aircraft. If you fail, you will be eliminated. After the landing procedure is initiated, pilot, you must maintain communication with the landing signal switch. Landing signal switch. The pilot who had no flight mission that day was in charge. They stood at the stern. Assist your companions to they are wearing white clothes. Communicate with the pilot via radio. Help them correct their flight path. And watch the aircraft approach through the monitor. Now! the pilot must focus on one important instrument: spotlight landing system on the flight deck, also known as meatball. Its up and down movement, ability to display the aircraft's taxi ramp, or the vertical angle relative to the approach runway if the aircraft cuts into the runway. On the correct taxi ramp, that is 3.5 degrees above the flight deck, the ball will stay perfectly in the middle of the green line. If the aircraft approaches at an angle that is top, when the landing signal is turned off, the red flashing light notify the pilot to abandon landing to avoid crash. Within 15 to 18 seconds of entering the field, the pilot must remain on the glide slope. Next is the highlight of landing. Landing by 3 hurdles. These 5 centimeters diameter composite steel rail at a distance of 15 meters, spanning the entire flight deck. Pilot must rely on a generation gap of 1.5 to. The metal rod is the one that hooks the fence group to each bar group block is connected to the hydraulic cylinder in the engine room. Each bar lock is wrapped around a set of pulleys and connected to a piston in a giant. When the tail hook of the aircraft rapidly pulls a barricade, the arresting station pulls the piston through the hydraulic cylinder. The fluid in the cylinder acts like a giant shock absorber, able to absorb, collect the amazing energy generated by the aircraft in motion. In less than 2 seconds, aircraft speed changed from 150 kilometers per hour to when the plane hit the deck. The pilot's mission is not over yet. On the contrary, he has to rev up his engine. Once the aircraft misses the arresting station, he has to get the plane back into the air. Landing error. It means you missed all the satisfaction. This happens in 5% to 10% of cases, although dangerous. But the pilots, this process is still repeated over. You can't even imagine. Highly specialized flight procedures on aircraft mainly originated from engineering innovation. At that time, China was still in a backward feudal dynasty before World War I. Navy pilots on a converted warship, launched using a compressed air catapult, propeller-driven biplane. Every landing is dangerous. The only things holding the plane back were ropes and sandbags. The flight could end in tragedy. Then in the 1920s, the first aircraft carrier built by the US Navy. Show your talent. Aircraft carrier engineering technology is developing rapidly. By World War II, aircraft carriers have replaced strategic ships, become the main force of naval combat weapons. The emergence of aircraft carriers. It greatly changed the outcome of World War II and helped the Allies in the Pacific